enough play really in the analysis. We've got to begin to prepare ourselves for whatever the new rules are going to be. A collective bargaining agreement is not just about the relationship between the players and the teams. It's also about dictating what mechanisms are available to you for building a successful team. And so until we know what those tools are, we're kind of trying to prepare ourselves for every conceivable scenario. But until you know what the rules are, you don't know what weapons you have to get better and really what the model is for how you should get better. And so that's a big challenge. And how we go about getting what we need is going to be dictated largely by what the rules are. I think we have a pretty good sense of what the areas in need are. Just how, what means will we have to be able to do that? Will it be free agency? Will it be trades? Will it be the draft? Will it be a combination? And that's going to be the challenge. So, and we don't have those answers, and we may not have them for a few months.
Until you get those answers, what do you do? What do you do then?
We come to work every day and try to prepare for every possible scenario. Do a very, very honest evaluation of our team and all those who work here to see where we can do better, what the priorities are in terms of getting better, and try to just really engage in a whole lot of scheming about what the various possibilities are. I think that's part of why we were brought here, to be able to work on that, and that's, I suppose one good thing about finishing early is we've got a head start on some of that stuff that we've already begun working on.
Is it a safe assumption that the future doesn't include Vince Carter?
I don't want to comment on anything specifically about anybody. I think we're too raw. I think it's a mistake to sort of jump to any conclusions the day after the season ends. I mean, we were actually just meeting with Vince. He understands that his contract presents a challenge for us, and we're going to be open and honest with him. But I don't think I want to comment on specifically whether anybody's going to be back or not back.
You're concerned that a CBA and a prolonged lockout will limit how much you can make over the roster, in time and money?
I mean, you just don't know what the rules are going to be. I just don't think you know, and it may force our hand in a direction that we don't currently see. But I think you have to have the foresight to see what do you have to do to build a team going forward, and that depends largely on how much player movement there's going to be in a new system. What the cap situation is going to be. I mean, I'm not going to, I can't comment on the specifics of that because nobody knows what it's going to be. But I think those rules are going to very much determine how we go about building this team and what the mechanisms are going to be for doing that.
Steve made it very clear last night. He said, "This is my team." So it's.
I can't believe I've been here 10 minutes and we're finally getting to this question.
Alvin talked about it even before anybody asked, but I mean, it's his team, right? I mean, he's right in that as far as the way you see it is, as long as he wants to be here, he's here, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no change in our position with. I think that's my phone. I'm not sure off in a second. There's no change in our position about Steve Nash. I mean, he is the sun and the moon and the stars of this franchise. I think we put him. It was a disappointing year for us, but it'd be hard to say that he was disappointing. He led the league in assists, and we see how we play with him, and we see how we play without him. And so, as I stand here today, I just can't imagine a scenario where he won't be back. But there is honestly uncertainty about everything. But we want him back. We recognize his value here. We may have to find better ways to utilize him and to utilize the pieces around him. I think we probably put too much burden on him this year. But I mean, anybody who begins the analysis of the Phoenix Suns and where we're headed with anything that suggests that Steve Nash is the problem and not the solution, I think is looking at it backwards.
Do you expect an interest in actually an extension Because he still wants to play after this contract expires. Is that something that you guys
Well,
are?
as I understand the rules as they exist now, that we can't even do that, because I don't think he's available for an extension until next summer, so we can't really even talk about that, and I don't know, the rules may change, but that's how they exist right now.
But do you foresee him here past next season if he wants to keep playing?
You sure, you know, I mean, of course I foresee it, I mean, but, you know, I'm having enough trouble dealing with what I'm gonna do on Monday, don't ask me, oh, we're gonna do 2 years from now, I mean, you know, that remains to be seen.
Lon, in the grand scheme, I know you say you want to keep Steve here, but in order to improve this team, are you still willing to listen to offers?
You know, I don't want to get into the nuances of that, because I've learned in the time I've been here that there's no way I can answer this question without, you know, cracking open a door that I don't want to go into. And so I'm not going to, you know, look, we're going to look at every possible way to make ourselves better. But that does not contemplate, as I stand here today, the notion that it won't include Steve Nash. He is not only everything to our team on the court, he's everything to this community. And to not recognize that is to you know, to miss the big picture of what this franchise is and what he's meant to us.
So there, you had defined some areas that you need to improve. What are those?
I mean, I think they're somewhat obvious. We need to, you know, we need a compliment to Channing up front. I think he had a wonderful year. I think he made great progress. We need probably more scoring on the wings. You know, a go-to player, someone we can throw the ball to, whether that's, you know, on the post or a wing player who can get us a basket down the stretch. But I would say, first and foremost, if you ask me, you know, what the top priority is as we evaluate our team this season, we have to get better defensively. You know, a lot of times we would lose games in the fourth quarter because the perception was we couldn't score. But the reality in my mind and Lance's mind and Alvin's mind was we couldn't get stops when we needed them. And it just put too much pressure on our offense. And we just have to get better defensively. And we have to change the perception of our team defensively. I think part of the reason we're not as good defensively as we should be is because everybody comes in here thinking we're not good defensively. So every offense comes in here relaxed, and that I think mindset has to change. And we were making a lot of progress in that regard. I mean, we were playing very, very well until Channing got hurt and then Steve got hurt. I don't want to overstate that because we just weren't good enough at the end of the day to get where we wanted to be. But there was a stretch there where we were really playing well defensively and offensively. So those are the obvious areas I think we need to address.
I think I've been here 12 years, and I think they've been talking about getting better defensively each of those years. How do you go beyond just talking about it and doing it?
You know, we have a lot of ideas, I think. You know, we started out by giving tacos if you don't score 99.
Always.
How about that? I mean, I just think we have to change our mindset. I think part of it is changing our mindset. And it's not just saying we want to be better defensively; it's working at it. And, you know, getting better defensive players here and having good defensive concepts and living by them and putting the emphasis on it. I just think this franchise has been so wildly successful as an offensive juggernaut that you can say you want to play defense, but at the end of the day, the notion was that we can always outscore everybody. I'm not sure that that's true anymore, given our personnel and given the pressure we're now putting on Steve offensively. We've got to get better defensively. But hopefully I won't be talking about this again a year from now. At least we will have made progress. And I think we did make progress. From the beginning of the year, we made a lot of progress. It's just we were still not quite good enough.
Alvin talked about having a new team twice in 1 year, too.
Right.
It's just about impossible to get any kind of chemistry. Is that a fair assumption, fair analysis?
Well, we put them in a tough spot. I think we know we put our coaches in a tough spot. I think, you know, when we made the moves that we made, it was because we didn't feel good about where we were. I think the trade we made in December, as disruptive as it was, will help this franchise in the long term as much as anything we've done our first year. And and so I'm very, very pleased with that trade, even though it had to be done when it was done, and it was disruptive, and we put our coaches in a tough spot. But it was the right move, and having Gortat here, I think, is one of the major positives of this season.
How do you look at the February trade?
I think the jury's out on that. Candidly, it didn't turn out the way we would have hoped. The thought was that Aaron could come in here and take a little pressure off of Steve, and that we could make a playoff run, and I think he played well sometimes, and I think we didn't integrate him as well as we had hoped we could, but I think the jury's out on that. I think the first trade is a no-brainer and a clear win. The second trade, the jury's out. I said the other day that trades are like presidencies; they take a long time to evaluate. That one is still in the evaluation stage. But obviously, a big thrust in making that trade was to give ourselves a chance to make the playoffs. So from that standpoint, we didn't accomplish that.
Difficult, two directions to go in acquiring players when you want a go-to offensive player, but the onus is on improving defensively at the same time.
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't think
The guys who can do that are.
Yeah, they're right.
Tony Brett.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think it's just a matter of getting better defensive players here. I think we have to structurally change how we approach playing defense conceptually and all of that, and put a greater emphasis on it. I think a lot can be accomplished by putting the emphasis on a different note. And I think we began to do that this year, but I think we tried to do it during the course of the season and with all the personnel changes. I just think we approach it, even if we have the exact same group back next year, we will be better defensively.
You're not talking about specific players, I'll ask about one anyway. Grant Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of year he had and how much you need a guy like that.
Like you're asking the wrong person that question. I mean, he is, as I said a number of times, and I've said to him personally, I've known him since 1994 when I began representing him, and as much as I appreciated him over the course of the years and as important as he has been to me personally and professionally, even I underestimated who he was and what he does for a team and what he does for a community, and I can't contemplate the notion of going forward without having him here. That's our mindset.
Have you thought about what that discussion is going to be like, being on the opposite table?
I'm not doing it. I told Lance he has to do it. I mean, that's not fair to Grant or to this franchise for me to be negotiating. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I'll let, obviously Lance and I'll talk a lot about it, but that's one negotiation I'm not doing.
What have you learned personally in this first year on the job?
That's a terrific question. I think about that a lot, and I'd say the thing I've learned most is try to learn to deal with the roller coaster of the season a little bit better. I said this before. I think when we win, I think we're never going to lose again. And when we lose, I think we're never going to win again. And in my position, I have to make sure I'm staying on an even keel in terms of my emotional reaction to the team, and I think I've learned to do that as the year's gone on. It's an invigorating job. It's an invigorating experience, and it's fun because of that. But I think you also have to make sure that you're making judgments based on sound reasoning and careful analysis. And even that's why I said what I said before. I think you don't evaluate your team the day after the season ends. You take a month or maybe 6 weeks or maybe 2 months to do that. And I think that's a hard part of the job for me, and to sort of, make sure I was on an even keel. And I think I've gotten better at it, but like a lot of parts of this job, there's a lot more I can do in that regard.
One more thing Alvin said was he had a rousing defense of Roberts' willingness to commit the resources that are necessary to build a winner. Did you, do you see that this is an organization that can actually become a contender, given what the resources seem to be
Yeah,
necessary?
I don't get that whole, issue candidly. I don't see any evidence, either historically or in the time I've been here, that the ownership here is not completely committed. And the ownership has put a terrific product on the floor in the time, not only that Robert was here, but even before. I don't think the issue is spending the money. I think, we can all go back and look at decisions that were made where they may not have been the right decisions in terms of how the money was spent. But, my view of ownership generally, and Robert in particular, are the following. He is passionate about winning. He is really, really smart, and anybody who underestimates those two things doesn't get anything about him. He's expressed a willingness to listen and to work with us and be deliberative in ways that maybe, are a little bit new to him. And, we have a terrific working relationship. And I think candidly, much aspersion comes his way, which I don't see any evidence of. So, yeah, I would not have taken this job if I didn't think that I would have the tools to accomplish what we're all trying to accomplish here. And there's nobody more passionate about trying to have this team be as successful as possible. And the notion to the contrary, I just don't. I'm a person who spent my whole life looking at the evidence, and where's the evidence? What evidence is there that this franchise is not committed to being successful?
Are you leaning more toward impact or potential of the draft?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Do you want somebody that can help you right away, or are you looking at players that potentially looking at players that have more long range?
The answer to that question is yes. That's going to be Lance's. Lance is taking the lead on that. I think, it depends on where you pick and who's available where you pick. I mean, that's a philosophical question as to whether you take, you draft by need or you draft by potential. I mean, I think, that's a question that we will get resolved as we move closer to the draft. I don't think that philosophically we hope to get someone in the draft who can help us now and also be terrific going forward. But I mean, we won't know until we see who's in the draft and where we're picking. So. Anybody else?
How would you assess how your front office arrangement worked out?
I think it's been terrific. I mean, I think Lance and I are working hand in glove just the way we hoped we would work. I think we each work with great respect for each other's abilities, staying within our lanes of expertise, and on a personal level, I couldn't be happier to be here, living in this community, working with the people I'm working with, and I think the third member of kind of our front office, John Trelaw, has been a great voice of reason and experience, and I have no reservation about the quality of character and the quality of talent that we have in the front office and how it's working. And I just saw yesterday that it looks like another agent has been hired, so it's catching on. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's working well. But we have, the proof is going to be in the pudding, and the pudding is still cooking. Anybody else? Thank you all. Appreciate it.